The winter of 2025 descended upon southern Europe with a decisiveness that caught almost everyone off guard. In the early morning hours of the 21st of November 2025, a powerful surge of Arctic air, dense and heavy with cold, spilled southward across the Alps like a river of ice. Meteorologists had warned of an unusual thermal drop, but the speed and intensity with which the air mass settled over Italy surprised even seasoned forecasters. Throughout the night, temperatures in northern Italy plummeted, in some areas by more than 10 degrees Celsius, collapsing from the mild, damp values typical of late autumn to freezing, crystalline cold. By dawn, much of the Po Valley had slipped into a premature winter. Before sunrise, the first signals of transformation appeared. In the dim glow of street lamps, residents of Lombardy noticed a slow, tentative descent of white particles, first just a few scattered flakes, swirling almost shyly in the cold breeze. But within minutes, the sky thickened, and the snowfall gained momentum. By 6:45 a.m. the snow became increasingly structured, with white flakes tumbling steadily down over Milan, Monza, Bergamo, and the corridor stretching toward Brescia. The cityscapes, still half asleep, began to morph under the muted glow of morning, as flakes clung to tram cables, garden hedges, balconies, and the roofs of parked cars. In Bergamo, the contrast was even more striking. The city, divided between the historic Città Alta perched on its medieval hilltop and the modern Città Bassa below, experienced different phases of the same event. In the upper city, snow accumulated rapidly, dusting stones and centuries-old walls in a white veil. Residents walking through Piazza Vecchia in the early hours described a surreal atmosphere, footsteps muffled, the great Tour Civica surrounded by a dance of flakes that seemed almost unreal in November. By 8 a.m., accumulation on the hill had reached 3 to 4 centimeters, enough to soften the shapes of rooftops and fill the gaps between paving stones. Lower down in the valley, the snow was wetter and slushier, but still persistent enough to slow traffic and create a light coating on vegetation and vehicles. The arrival of snow in the plains triggered an avalanche of logistical issues. Public transportation struggled almost immediately. Several early morning trains on the Bergamo-Milan line experienced abrupt failures as mechanical sensors and electrical circuits, not yet winter protected, reacted poorly to ice forming around exposed components. A regional train scheduled at 6:02 became immobilized near Dalmine, its doors unable to operate due to frozen pneumatic lines. Passengers waited nearly an hour for replacement buses, wrapped in coats and scarves, watching the snow intensify outside fogged windows. Other lines experienced delays of 20 to 60 minutes, while some services were replaced entirely by buses, creating crowded platforms and long queues across the region. Road travel was no easier. The sudden freeze produced patches of ice on bridges and shaded stretches of highway. On the A4 between Milan and Bergamo, traffic slowed to a deliberate crawl, with hazard lights blinking across multiple lanes. In suburban areas, roundabouts became slippery traps, forcing drivers to brake with unusual caution. Local police responded to a string of minor collisions, nothing severe, but enough to highlight how unprepared many were for winter conditions in November. While the plains experienced disruptions, the nearby mountains entered full winter mode. As the Arctic air mass collided with moisture-laden winds from the Mediterranean, snowfall intensified dramatically along the Prealps and Appennino Settentrionali. Villages perched between 600 and 800 meters were transformed into winter postcards. In Val Seriana, the towns of Nembro, Salvino, and Oltre il Colle recorded 8 to 12 centimeters of accumulation by mid-morning. Higher still, near 1,200 meters, totals approached 20 centimeters, with snow continuing uninterrupted into the afternoon. Ski resorts, many of which were still finishing pre-season maintenance, scrambled to activate snow groomers, safety patrols, and electrical systems, delighted by the unexpected natural snowfall that could create a solid foundation weeks earlier than planned. Across the border, the Swiss Alps received a veritable winter storm. Meteorological stations in the northern Alpine arc reported between 20 and 50 centimeters of fresh snow ***, with exposed crests accumulating more due to drifting. The heavier, moisture-rich snow clung thickly to pines and firs, bending branches and muffling the forests in a deep silence. Avalanche experts immediately began monitoring slopes susceptible to early season instability, where layers of snow with mismatched density could set the stage for dangerous slides. Ski resorts in the Bernese Oberland and Graubünden announced that slope openings might be advanced by as much as 2 weeks, bringing joy to winter sports enthusiasts and a welcome economic boost after several years of unpredictable early winters. Back in Italy, the scope of the cold wave expanded rapidly. Civil protection issued widespread yellow alerts across central and southern regions, as the Arctic air interacted with moist currents pushing north. This interaction produced a meteorological cocktail of snow at altitude, cold rain in the valleys, and powerful winds along the Tyrrhenian coast. Gusts exceeding 70 km per hour forced temporary suspension of ferry services between Naples and the islands, while waves more than 3 meters high battered breakwaters in Lazio and Calabria. Inland, the Apennines experienced intense snowfall from 400 meters upward. By midday, mountain passes in Emilia-Romagna reported 18 to 25 centimeters of fresh snow ***, prompting authorities to deploy more than 30 snowplows to ensure corridors remained open for essential transport. The cold wave extended its reach into the agricultural sector. Farmers across northern Italy rushed to protect crops from the sudden freeze. In the vineyards of Piedmont, anti-frost systems were activated, while fruit growers insulated irrigation systems to prevent damage from ice expansion. Vegetable farms in the Po Plain covered vulnerable seedlings or harvested earlier than planned to avoid losses. The early cold also created logistical challenges for small producers transporting goods through mountain passes now partially covered in snow. In the cities, the human experience of the event varied widely. In Milan, residents recorded videos of flakes swirling between the high steel and glass facades of Porta Nuova, giving the hypermodern district an unexpectedly Nordic appearance. In Bergamo's medieval alleys, children played by catching flakes on their gloves, while elderly residents remarked nostalgically that such early snow reminded them of winters from another era. On social media, photos of trams advancing through white-curtained streets were shared thousands of times, accompanied by comments expressing both delight and disbelief. From a climatological standpoint, the event was particularly notable. Although snowfall in November is common in the Alps, snow in the plains of northern Italy before December has become less frequent over the past 2 decades due to gradual warming trends. The sharp temperature drop and widespread snowfall were therefore interpreted by meteorologists as the result of a rare but powerful alignment of atmospheric dynamics, a deep trough in the jet stream, a fast-descending Arctic air mass, and the presence of abundant Mediterranean humidity. Models showed that the cold air became trapped in a thermal basin effect over the Po Valley, allowing snow to form and persist even at altitudes barely above sea level. As the day progressed, the cold showed no sign of relenting. Temperatures remained between -1 degrees Celsius and 2 degrees Celsius across much of northern Italy, ensuring that any new precipitation risked turning into snow, freezing rain, or sleet. Forecasts for the following days predicted repeated waves of instability, with chances for additional snowfall possibly more widespread early in the next week, especially if cloud cover persisted and prevented daytime warming. By evening, a soft darkness fell over the snow-coated landscape. In the hills, snow continued to drift down in quiet, elegant spirals, accumulating steadily on rooftops and pine branches. In the city, melted patches refroze into shimmering, glassy surfaces that reflected streetlights. Crews worked through the night to salt roads, clear sidewalks, and ensure the Saturday morning commute would be manageable. By the 22nd of November, the first major phase of the event slowly eased, though the cold remained firmly anchored. In upland areas, the snowpack measured 20 to 30 centimeters, while the Alps boasted widespread totals surpassing 40 to 60 centimeters. For many, these 2 days marked not only a meteorological event but a sensory and emotional experience. The smell of cold air, the soundless tranquility of snowfall through the night, the communal sense of witnessing the first true breath of winter. The early snowfall reshaped plans, disrupted routines, inspired wonder, and reminded northern Italy and the Alpine regions that nature's rhythms can still surprise even in an era of warming trends and changing seasonal patterns. The winter of 2025, it seemed, was announcing itself boldly, unmistakably, and perhaps with more to come. As the cold wave tightened its grip over the Italian peninsula through the night of November 22, meteorological centers across Europe intensified monitoring. Satellite imagery from early morning revealed a wide plume of Arctic origin air still funneling southward through the Alpine gates, with streaks of moisture-laden clouds spiraling from the Ligurian Sea. This configuration suggested that the first snowfall was only the opening chapter of a larger and potentially more disruptive sequence of winter weather patterns. Indeed, as Saturday dawned, temperatures across much of Lombardy, Piedmont, Veneto, and Emilia-Romagna remained stubbornly low, hovering between -3 degrees Celsius and +1 degrees Celsius, effectively preserving the snow already on the ground. In rural areas, the impact of the freeze began to manifest more clearly. Farmers in the Po Valley awakened to fields crusted in a thin shell of ice, the ground hardened and unyielding beneath their boots. Irrigation canals, still flowing the day before, now carried slow-moving sheets of forming frost. Barn roofs sagged slightly under the weight of 7 to 10 centimeters of accumulated snow, and the crisp morning air carried the scent of smoke as wood stoves were lit in thousands of farmhouses. Veterinarians issued advisories urging livestock owners to ensure constant access to unfrozen water sources and to reinforce shelters ahead of predicted wind gusts expected to exceed 80 kilometers per hour in some exposed plains. Meanwhile, residents of urban centers observed a landscape transformed into a winter tableau. Milan's streets, partially cleared overnight, glistened under the pale Saturday sunlight. The iconic Piazza del Duomo showcased a fleeting and rare vision, the cathedral's intricate spires crowned with delicate patches of white, while pigeons strutted cautiously across the thin snow cover. In Bergamo, early risers captured photographs of Città Alta shrouded in a swirling morning mist, the snow reflecting diffuse light that made the ancient stone appear almost luminous. Transportation networks, however, continued to struggle. Despite progress overnight, residual ice on railway switches caused intermittent disruptions across Lombardy's commuter lines. The Milano-Bergamo corridor recorded additional delays as crews manually diced critical mechanical components. Across the region, more than 250 regional trains operated under modified schedules, with reduced speeds enforced in several sections. Analysts warned that the rail system, designed more for temperate northern Italian winters than for sudden Arctic outbreaks, was vulnerable to repeated malfunctions should the cold persist. Road travel in the Alps grew increasingly hazardous. In mountain villages straddling the border between Italy and Switzerland, Saturday's early traffic was marked by chains rattling against compacted snow as drivers navigated winding roads buried under fresh flurries. Snowfall totals in the Swiss cantons of Graubünden and Valais had surpassed 60 centimeters, with drifts over a meter high in some mountain passes. The St. Moritz region, often accustomed to early winter conditions, nonetheless experienced power interruptions as heavy snow weighed on overhead lines. Crews worked continuously, clearing roads and repairing infrastructure under an unrelenting barrage of snow showers. Back in Italy, meteorologists issued new advisories for areas farther south, where the cold air had only recently arrived. In Tuscany, Umbria, and Lazio, the descending Arctic mass collided with warmer Mediterranean currents, generating a turbulent mix of cold rain, sleet, and localized bursts of snow above 400 to 500 meters. Residents in the hilly outskirts of Florence and the mountainous towns near Arezzo reported the first snowflakes of the season, while areas near Viterbo in northern Lazio saw brief but